And I would be as big an asshole as the teachers not to have screamed. A shithead hypocrite because I didn't believe tomorrow was coming. One day it wouldn't come. But I would die pretending like them, acting nice, not screaming. I wanted to scream at them and make them tell me the truth. Would there be tomorrow or not? When I was a child, they made us hide under our desks, crawl under them on our hands, and keep our heads down and cover our ears with our elbows and keep our hands clasped behind our heads. I used to pray to God not to have it hurt when the bomb came. They said it was practice for when the Russians bombed us so we would live after it. And I was as scared as anyone else, and I did what they said, although I wondered why the Russians hated us so much. And I was thinking there must be a Russian child like me, scared to die. You can't help being scared when you're so little and all the adults say the same thing. You have to believe them. You have to stay there for a long time and be quiet, and your shoulders hurt because you had to stay under your desk, which was tiny even compared to how little you were, and you didn't know what the bomb was yet, so you thought they were telling the truth and the Russians wanted to hurt you. But if you stayed absolutely still and quiet on your knees and covered your ears underneath your desk, the Russians couldn't. I wondered if your skin just burned off, but you stayed on your knees dead. Everyone had nightmares, but the adults didn't care, because it kept you obedient, and that was what they wanted. They liked keeping you scared and making you hide all the time from the bomb under your desk. Adults told terrible lies. Not like regular lies. Ridiculous, stupid lies that made you have to hate them. They would say anything to make you do what they wanted, and they would make you afraid of anything. No one ever told so many lies before, probably. When the Bay of Pigs came, all the girls at school talked together in the halls and in the lunchrooms and said the same thing. We didn't want to die virgins. No one said anyone else was lying because we thought we were all probably going to die that day. And there wasn't any point in saying someone wasn't a virgin, and you couldn't really know, really, because boys talked already, and no one said they weren't, because then you would be a lowlife, and no one would talk to you again, and you would have to die alone, and if the bomb didn't come, you might as well be dead. Girls were on the verge of saying it, but no one dared. Of course, now the adults were saying everything was fine, and no bomb was coming, and there was no danger. We didn't have to stand in halls. Not that day. The one day it was clear atomic death was right there in New Jersey. But we knew. And everyone thought the same thing, and said the same thing, and it was the only thought we had, to say how sad we were to die, and everyone giggled and was almost afraid to say it, but everyone had been thinking the same thing all night, and wanted to say it in the morning before we died. It was like a record we were making for ourselves, a history of us, how we had lived and been cheated because we had to die virgins. We said to each other that it is not fair we have to die now, today. We didn't get to do anything. We said it to each other, and everyone knew it was true. And then we lived. And the bomb didn't come. And we never said anything about it again. But everyone hurried. We hurried like no one had ever hurried in the history of the world. Our mothers lived in dream time. No bomb, old age, do it for the first time after marriage, one man or you'll be cheap. Time for them droned on. Bay of Pigs meant no more time. They don't care about why girls do things. But we know things. And we do things. We're not just animals who don't mind dying. The houses where I lived were brick, the streets were cement, gray, and I used to think about the 3 pigs, and the big bad wolf blowing down their houses, but not the brick one. How the brick one was strong and didn't fall down, and I would try to think if the brick ones would fall down when the bomb came. They looked like blood already. Blood-stained walls, blood against the gray cement. They were already broken. The bricks were torn and crumbling as if they were soft clay, and the cement was broken and cracked, and I would watch the houses and think, maybe it was like with the 3 pigs and the big bad wolf couldn't blow them down, the big bad bomb. I thought maybe we had a chance, but if we lived in some other kind of house, we wouldn't have a chance. I tried to think of the bomb hitting, and the brick turned into blood and dust, red dust, covering the cement wet with real blood, but the cement would be dust too, gray dust, red dust on gray dust, just dust and sky, everything gone, just the ground level, just level everywhere there was. I could see it in my mind with me sitting on the dust playing with it, but I wouldn't be there. It would be red dust on gray dust and nothing else, and I wouldn't even be a speck. I thought it would be beautiful. Real pure, not ugly and poor like it was now, but so sad. 1,000,000 years of nothing, and tidal waves of wind would come and kill the quiet of the dust. Kill it. I went away to New York City for freedom. And I went away from the red dust, A picture bigger than the edges of my mind. It was a red landscape of nothing that was in me, and that I put on everything I saw like it was burned on my eyes. And I always saw Camden that way, in my inner mind. It was the landscape of where I lived. It didn't matter that I went to point zero. It would just be faster. And I hadn't been hiding there under that desk, afraid. I hate being afraid. I hadn't grown up there, waiting for it to happen, and making pictures of it in my mind, seeing the terrible dust, the awful nothing, and I hadn't died there during the Bay of Pigs. The red dust was Camden. You can't forgive them when you're a child and they make you afraid, so you go away from where you were afraid. Some stay, some go. It's a big difference, leaving the humiliations of childhood, the morbid fear. We didn't have much to say to each other, the ones that left and the ones that stayed. Children get shamed by fear, but you can't tell the adults that. They don't care. They make the children into dead things like they are. If there's something left alive in you, you run. You run from the poor little child on her knees. Fear burned the skin off, all right. She's still on her knees, dead and raw and tender. New York's nothing. A piece of cake. You never get afraid like that again. Not ever. I live where I can find a bed. Men roll on, fuck, roll off, shoot up, sleep, roll on again. In between you sleep. It's how it is, and it's fine. I never did feel more at home. It's as if I was always there. It's familiar. The streets are the same gray. Home. Fucking is nothing, really. Hiding from the law and dumb adults is ordinary life. You're always hiding from them anyway, unless you're one of their robots. I hate authority, and it's no joke, and it's no game. I want them dead, all right, all the order givers. New York's home because there's other people the same. We know each other as much as you have to. Not much. The only other way is the slow time of mothers facing a wall, staring at a blank wall. For life, one man, forever, marriage, the living dead. I don't want to be like them. I never will be. I'm not afraid of dying. And I'm not standing quiet at some wall. The bomb comes at me, I'm going to hurl myself into it, flash fly into its fucking face. I'm fine on the streets. I'm not afraid of fucking or anyone. There's nothing I'm afraid of. I have ideals about peace and freedom, and it doesn't matter what the adults think, because they lie. And they're stupid. I'm sincere and smarter than them. I believe in universal love. I want to love everybody even if I don't know them, and not to have small minds like the adults. I don't mind if people are strangers or how they look, and no matter how raw somebody is, they're human. It's the plastic ones that aren't human. I don't need a lot. A place to sleep, some money, almost none. Cigarettes. Everyone in this place knows something. Jazz or poems or anarchism or dope or books I've never heard of before. They don't like the bomb. They've lived and they don't hide from knowing things, and sex is the main way you live. Adults say it isn't. But they never told the truth yet. New York's the whole world. It's like living inside a heartbeat, like a puppy you can put your head up against and ticking when you're lonely and when you want to move. The beat's behind you. I don't need things. I'm not an American consumer. I'm on the peace side, and I have ideals about freedom, and I don't want anyone telling me what to do. I've had enough of it. I'm against war. I go to demonstrations. I'm a pacifist. I have been since I can remember. I read books and I go to places in New York, churches and bare rooms even, and I hear people read poems, and in my mind, I'm with Sartre or Camus or Rimbaud, and I want to show love to everyone and not be confined, and sex is honest, it's not a lie, and I like to feel things, strong things. In New York, there's people like me everywhere, hiding where regular people don't look. In every shadow, there's the secret people. There are pockets of dark in the dark, and the people like me are in them, poor with nothing, not afraid. I'm never afraid. It's as if every crack in the sidewalk is an open door to somewhere. You can go between the cracks to the hidden world, but regular people never even see the cracks. People the same as you go through the cracks because they're not afraid, and you meet them there in the magical places, real old, from other generations even, hidden. Some gray underground city, dirty, hard, dark, free. There's always sex and dope, and you can get pretty hungry. But you can get things if you have to. There's always someone. I never doubted it was home from the start, where I was meant to come. I'm known and invisible at the same time. Fitting in but always going my own way, a shy girl alone in a dark corner of the dark. The dark's familiar to me, and so are the men in it. No rules can ever stop night from putting its arms around a lonely girl. I like doing what I want, no matter what it is, and I like drifting. And I run if I have to. Someone's always there, kind or otherwise. You decide quick. I love the dark. It's got no rough edges for me. I hear every sound without trying. I feel as if I was born knowing every signal. I'm an animal on instinct, lucky to be in the right jungle. A magic animal charged with everything intense and sacred, and I hate cages. I am the night, the same. You have to hurt it to hurt me. I'm one half of everything. Lawless, the night brings every lawless embrace. I can smell where to turn in the dark. It's not something you can know in your head. It's a whisper so quiet not even the dead could hear it. It's touching fire so fast you don't burn your hand, but the fire's real. I don't know how much, not what things are called or how to do them right or how people act all the regular times. Everything's just what it is to me, with nothing to measure it against and no way to check, and I don't have any tomorrow. And I don't have a yesterday that I can remember because the days and nights just go on and never stop and never slow down and never turn regular. Nothing makes time normal. I have 19 cents. I buy a big purple thing. It's with the vegetables. A sign says eggplant. It's the cheapest thing there is. I never saw one before. I try to cook it in in my one little pan in a little water. I eat it. You bet I do. It's an awful thing. I see why my mama always used vegetables in cans, but they cost more. I buy rice in big, unmarked bags. I think it's good for you because Asian people eat it and they have lived for centuries, no matter how poor they are. And they have an old civilization, so it must be good. And then someone says it has starch, and starch is bad, so I stop buying it because the man's very disapproving, as if I should know better, because it makes you fat, he says. Just boil what there is. I buy whatever costs what I have in my pocket. I don't know what people are talking about sometimes, but I stay quiet because I don't want to appear so ignorant to them. For instance, there are funny words that I can't even try to say because I think they will laugh at me. But I heard them once, like zucchini, and if someone makes something and hands it to me, I eat it. Sometimes someone asks me if I like this or that, but I don't know what they mean. And I stare blankly, but I smile, and I don't know what they think. But I try to be polite. I worked at the Student Peace Union and the War Registers League to stop the bomb, and I was a receptionist at a place that taught reading, and I was a waitress at a coffee shop that poured coffee to go, and I typed and carried packages, and I went with men, and they had smoke or food or music or a place to sleep. I didn't get much money, and I didn't keep any jobs because mostly I lived in pretty bad places or on the streets or in different places night to night, and I guess the regular people didn't like it or wanted to stay away, but I didn't care or think about it. And I never thought about being regular or looking regular or acting regular. I did what I wanted from what there was. And I liked working for peace, and the rest was for cigarettes. I slept in living rooms, on cots, on floors, on soiled mattresses, in beds with other people I didn't know who fucked while I slept, in Brooklyn, in Spanish Harlem, near Tompkins Square Park, in abandoned buildings, in parks, in hallways, curled up in corners. You can build your own walls. Even the peace people had apartments and pretty things and warm food and seemed regular and abundant, but I didn't know. I never asked them for anything, but sometimes someone took me home, and I could see. I didn't know where it came from. It was just like some play with scenery. They had plants or pretty rugs or wool things or posters, furniture, heat, food, things around. I tried to live in a collective on Avenue B, and I was supposed to have a bed. We were going to cook and all, but there was this and all, but that was where the junkies kept rolling on top of me because the collective would never tell anyone they couldn't sleep there. And I was never there early enough, so there wasn't someone to sleep where I thought was mine. I never did really sleep very well. It's sort of a lie to say I could sleep with junkies rolling over. A little bravado on my part, except I fell off to sleep or at some state of less awake, and then it had happened. You're always a little awake. I lived in the living room of a woman for peace who lived with her brother. He slept in the living room, she slept in the bedroom. but she put me in the living room with him. He breathed heavy and stayed up watching me, and I had to move out because she said he couldn't sleep. I stayed anywhere I could for as long as I could, but it wasn't too long usually. I slept on benches and in doorways. Doorways can be like palaces in the cold, in the dark, when it's wet. Doorways are strong. You feel sheltered, like the arms of God, unless the wind changes and comes right at you and drives through you. Then you wake up already shivering. Sleep pulling you down because you don't want to believe you were only dreaming the wind is driving through you, but you started to shake, unconscious, and the cold permeates your body before you can bring your mind to facing it. You can't find any place in New York that doesn't have me in it. I'm stuck in the dark. My remembrance, a shadow, a shade, an old dark scar that keeps tearing. Dark edges ripping, dark blood spilling out. There's a piece left of me, faded, pasted into every night, the girl who wanted peace. Later, I found out it was Needle Park or Bed-Stuy where the whores there, or it was some sort of sociological phenomenon and someone had made a documentary showing the real shit, some intrepid filmmaker, some hero. It never happened. No one ever made a documentary showing, or no one ever showed the real shit because it isn't photogenic. It doesn't stand still, people just live it. They don't know it or conceptualize it or pose for it or pretend it, and you don't get to do it over if you make a mistake. You just get nailed, fucked or hit or hurt or ripped off or poisoned with bad shit. Or you're just dead. There's no art to it. There's more of me stuck in that old night than anywhere. You don't just remember it. It remembers you. Andrea, it says, I know you. You do enough in it and it takes you with it. And I'm there in it. Every night on every street. When the dark comes, I come every night. On every street until New York's gone. I'm alive there in the dark, rubbing up against anything flesh and blood, not a poor homeless girl, but a brazen girl for peace. Hungry, tired, waiting for you, to rub up against you, to take what you have, to get what you got. Peace, freedom, love, a fuck, a shy smile, some quarters or dimes or dollars. The dark's got a little anger in it, moving right up against you. You can feel it, pushing right up against you now and then, a burning flash across your thing. It's me, I'm there, Andrea, a charred hallucination. You know the way the dark melts in front of you? I'm the charred thing in the melting dark, the dark fire, dark ash burned black, and you walk on, agitated to find a living one, not a shade stuck in midnight, but some poor, trembling, real girl hungry enough to even smile at you. That's my home you're misbehaving in with your mischievous little indulgences, your secret little purchases of girls and acts, because I was on every street, every alley, fucked there, slept there, got drugs there, found a bed for my weary head. Oh, it got weary, curled up under something, a little awake. Can't be. No one can live that way. Can't be. Isn't true. Can't be. Was. I wasn't raped really until I was 18. Pretty old. Well, it wasn't really rape. Rape is just some awful word. It's a way to say it was real bad, worse than anything. I was a pacifist, and I didn't believe in hurting anyone, and I wouldn't hurt anyone. I had been 18 for a couple of months, a legal age. It was winter, cold. You don't forget winter. I was working for peace groups and for nonviolence. It wouldn't be fair to call it rape to him. It wouldn't be fair to him. I wasn't a virgin or anything. He forced me, but it was my own fault. I was working in a student peace union then, at the War Resistors League. I typed, I answered phones, I tried to be in the meetings, but they didn't really ever let me talk, and I helped organize demonstrations by calling people on the phones, and I helped to write leaflets. They didn't really believe in rape, I think. I couldn't talk to anyone or tell anyone because they would just say how I was bourgeois, which was this word they used all the time. Women were it more than anybody. They were hip or cool or hipsters or bohemians or all those words you could see in the newspapers on the Lower East Side, but anytime a woman said anything, she was bourgeois. I knew what it meant, but I didn't know how to say it. It wasn't right. They believed in nonviolence, and so did I, 100%. I wouldn't hurt anybody even if he did rape me, but he probably didn't. Men were supposed to go crazy and kill someone if he was a rapist, but they wouldn't hurt him for raping me because they didn't believe in hurting anyone, and because I was bourgeois, and anything that brought me down lower to the people was okay, and if it hurt me, I deserved it. because if you were a bourgeois female, you were spoiled and had everything and needed to be fucked more or to begin with. At the Student Peace Union, there were boys my age, but they were treated like grown men by everyone around there. And they bossed me around and didn't listen to anything I said except to make fun of it, and no one treated me as if I knew anything, which maybe I didn't. But the boys were pretty ignorant pieces of shit, I can tell you that. I was confused by it, but I kept working for peace. Those boys called Mama at home, I heard them. I didn't. They were adults, some really old at the War Resisters League, but to me they weren't anything like adults from school. They were heroes to me. They had gone to jail for things they believed in. They weren't afraid, and they didn't follow laws, and they didn't act dead, and they had sex, and they didn't lie about it, and they didn't act like there was all the time in the world, because they knew there wasn't. They stood up to the government. They weren't afraid. One had been a freedom rider in the South, and he got beaten up so many times he was like a punched-out prize fighter. He could barely talk. He had been beaten up so much. I didn't try to talk to him or around him because I held him in awe. I thought I would be awfully proud if I was him, but he wasn't proud at all. Just quiet, shy. Sometimes I wondered if he could remember anything, but maybe he knew everything and was just humble and brave. I have chosen to think so. He did things like I did. Typed and put out mailings and put postage on envelopes and ran errands and got coffee. He didn't order anyone around. They were all brave and smart. One wrote poems, and lots of them wrote articles and edited newspapers and magazines. One wrote a book I had read in high school, not in class, of course, about freedom and utopia, but when I asked him to read a poem I wrote, I asked a secretary who knew him to ask him because I was too shy. He wouldn't, and the secretary said he hated women. He had a wife, and there was a birthday party for him one day, and his wife brought a birthday cake, and he wouldn't speak to her. Everyone said he had boys. His wife was embarrassed and just kept talking, just on, and everyone was embarrassed, but no one made him talk to her or thank her, and I stayed on the outside of the circle that was around him to think if it was possible that he hated women, even his wife, and why he would be mean to her as if she didn't exist. You'd thank anyone for a birthday cake. From his book, I thought he was wise. I thought he loved everyone. And if he hated women and everyone knew it, how come they were so nice to him? Because hate wasn't nonviolence. And when he died a few years later, I felt relieved. I wonder if his wife was sad or if she felt relieved. I suppose she was sad, but why? I thought he was this one hateful man, but all the others were great I-thous, the real I-thous, fighting militarism, wanting peace, writing. I wanted to be the same. The I-its were the regular people on the streets, dressed in suits, all the same like robots, busy going to business, and women with lacquered hair and outfits. But the boys who wanted to be conscientious objectors came in for help. There were always lots of jokes about rape. I didn't see how you could make jokes about rape if you were against violence. Maybe rape barely existed at all, but it was pretty awful. The pacifists and war resisters would counsel the conscientious objectors about what to say to the draft boards. Vietnam was pulling all these boys to be killers. The draft board always asked what the COs would do if their mother was raped, or their girlfriend, or their sister, and it was a big joke. The pacifists and the COs would say things like they would let her have a good time. I don't remember all the things they said, but they would laugh and joke about it. It always made me sort of sick, but I tried to say something the way they would listen. And I didn't know what to say, anyway. But if I tried to say something, they wouldn't listen, and I didn't know what to say anyway. Even the pacifists would tell the COs the right way to answer the question. It was a lofty answer about never using violence under any circumstance, however tragic or painful, but it was a lie, because none of them ever thought it was anything to have their girlfriend raped or their mother. They always thought it was funny, and they always laughed. So it wasn't violence, because they never laughed at violence. So I'm not sure if rape even really existed, because the pacifists really cared about violence. And they never would turn their backs on violence. They cared about social justice. They cared about peace. They cared about racism. They cared about poverty. They cared about everything bad that happened to people. It was confusing that they didn't care about rape, or thought it was a joke. But then I wasn't so sure what rape was exactly. I knew it was horrible. I always had a picture in my mind of a woman unable to move. I always thought about the Nazis had done it. The draft board always asked about the Nazis. Would you have fought against the Nazis? Suppose the Nazis tried to rape your sister. They would rehearse how to answer the draft board, and then when it came to the rape part, they always laughed and made jokes. I would be typing. because I never got to talk, or they would act irritated if I did, or they would just keep talking to each other anyway over me. And I felt upset, and I would interrupt and say, well, I mean, rape is... But I could never finish the sentence, and if I managed to get their attention, sometimes by nearly crying, they'd all just stare, and I'd go blank. It was a terrifying thing, and you would be so hurt. How could they laugh? And you wouldn't want a Nazi to come anywhere near you. It would just be foul. The Nazis, I would say, trying to find a way to say, very bad, rape is very bad, I wanted to say, but I could only say Nazis are very bad. What's bad about fucking my sister, someone would say, always, every time. Then they'd all laugh. So I wasn't even sure if there was rape. So I don't think it could have been raped, even though I think I was raped. But I know I wasn't, because it barely existed, or it didn't exist at all, and if it did, it was only with the Nazis. It had to be as bad as Nazis. I didn't want the man to be fucking me, but I mean, that doesn't really matter. It's just that I really tried to stop him. I really tried. I didn't want him near me. I didn't want him to. But I guess... But I guess it doesn't matter. I had this boyfriend named Arthur. A sweet man. He was older. He had dignity. He wasn't soft. He knew the streets. But he didn't need to show anything or prove anything. He just lived, as far as I could see. He was a waiter in a bar deep in the Lower East Side, so deep under a dark sky, wretched to get there, but okay inside. I was sleeping on a floor near there in a collective. Someone told me you could get real cheap chicken at the bar. I would go there every night for my one meal. Fried chicken in a basket, with hot, thick French fried potatoes and ketchup for my 99 cents. And it was real good. Real chicken, not raw meat, cooked good. He brought me a beer, but I had to tell him to take it back because I didn't have the money for it, but he was buying it for me. Then I went with him one night. The bar was filled and noisy and had sawdust on the floors and barrels of peanuts so you could eat them without money, and there were lowlife and artists there. He smiled and seemed happy, and also had a sadness in his eyes, on the edges of his mouth. He lived in a small apartment with two other men, one painter, Eldridge, the other I never met. It was tiny, up 5 flights on Avenue D, with a couple of rooms I never saw. You walked through a tiny kitchen, all cracked wood with holes in the floor, an ancient stove and an old refrigerator that looked like a bank vault, round and heavy and metal, with almost no room inside. His bed was a single bed in a kind of living room, but not quite. There were paintings by the artists in the room. The artist was sinewy and had a limp and was bitter, not sad, with a mean edge to everything he said. He had to leave the room so he could be alone. I could hear him there, listening. I stayed the night, and I remember how it was to watch the light come up and have someone running his finger under my chin and touching my hands with his lips. I was afraid to go back to the bar after that because I didn't know if he'd want me to, but it was the only place I knew to get a meal for small change. Every time he was glad to see me, and he would ask me what I wanted, and he would bring me dinner and some beer and another one later, and I would stay, and I would go with him. I didn't talk much, because you don't talk to men, even if they seem nice. You can never know if they will mind or not, but usually they will mind. But he asked me things. He told me some things, hard things, about his life and time in jail and troubles. And he asked me some things, easy things, about what I did that day, or what I thought, or if I liked something, or how I felt, or if something felt good, or if I was happy, or if I liked him. He was my lover, I guess. Not really my boyfriend, because I never knew if I should go into the bar or not, but I would. And then we'd make love, and when we made love, he was a sweet man with kisses and soft talk into sunrise, and he'd hold me. Sometimes he took me to visit people, his friends, and I was too shy to say anything, but I thought it might mean he liked me, or trusted me, or had some pride in me, or felt right about me. And they asked me things too, and tried to talk with me. Eldridge would come into the bar and get drinks and say something, but always something cutting or mean, so I didn't know what to say or do because I didn't know if I was supposed to be his friend or not, only that Arthur said he loved him. I would ask him about his paintings, but he would look away. I went to the bar for a long time, maybe 3 months, and I went with Arthur to where he slept in the bed in the living room, and we'd kiss face to face, and the light would come up. I learned to love dawn and the long, slow coming of the light. One night I went to the bar and Arthur wasn't nice anymore. He brought dinner to me and he brought beer, but he wouldn't look at me or talk to me, and his face was different with a deep anger or pain. I didn't know what, because I don't know how to know what people feel or think. A lot of time went by and I thought I should go away and not come back, but he sat down. It was a Saturday night, early in the night, because he usually works Saturdays until 4 a.m. But now it was only 10 at night, and it was busy, very busy, so it wasn't easy for him to sit down. And he said his sister, an older sister, Caroline, was in the hospital, and she had brought him up, and she had cancer. And she had had cancer for a long time, but now it seemed she was dying, now, tonight. And he was hurting so bad. He was in bad grief, sad and angry and fucked up, and he had to go to the hospital right now, and it was far away uptown, and it would take most of the night, and probably she'd die tonight. And would I go to his place? And he would take me there to make sure I got there safe. And would I wait for him there? He knew I might not want to. And it was a lot to ask, but would I? And I said I was sorry about his sister, and I would go there, and I would wait for him. He took me there, and he kissed me, and he showed me with courtesy to the little bed where we slept. It was all made up like a sofa in what was sort of a living room with the paintings all around, and he showed me where some books were, and he thanked me, and I said I would wait. And I was so sorry. I waited many hours. Sometimes I walked around, sometimes I sat. There wasn't enough light to read, really. I looked at the paintings, and then Eldridge came in. And after I was bleeding and I couldn't move, and I could hear Arthur coming, and Eldridge said, "I'm his best friend, and I'll tell him you wanted it," he said. "I'm his best friend, and you'll kill him if you tell him." And he said, "He'll kill you if you tell him, because he can't stand anymore." I straightened up the bed fast, because I could have been sleeping in it, so it didn't have to be perfect, and I straightened up my clothes, and I tried to get the blood off my face by rubbing it on my sleeve, and I sat on the edge of the bed with my hands folded, waiting, and the lights were out, and I didn't know if Arthur would see anything on my face, pain or bruises or cuts, and I didn't know what Arthur would believe. And he said his sister had died, and he sat down next to me, and he cried, and I held him. And he asked me if everything was all right, and I said yes. And he asked me if anything was wrong, and I said no. And he asked me if Eldridge had bothered me, and I said no. And he wanted to make love, so we made love in the dark, in the pain of him, in the agony of pain on pain. And I asked God to stop the pain. I had forgotten God, but I remembered him now. And I supplicated him with Arthur in me, asking him to stop the pain. And the light started coming up so slow, and it fell so slow on Arthur's grief-stricken, tear-stained black face, a face of aging grace and relentless dignity, a handsome face with remorse and sorrow in it for what he had seen and known and done, the remorse and sorrow that is part of any decent life. More sorrow, more trouble than white men had, trouble because of color, then the burden of regular human pain. An older sister, Caroline, dies, and I turned my face away because I was afraid he would see bruises or cuts where I was hit, or I was afraid he could see. And I didn't know how to explain, because I had already lied, so it couldn't be true now, later. And tears were coming down my face, and he touched the tears, and he asked if I was crying because I loved him and was sad for his sister, and I said yes. He slept then, and I went away. I didn't come back. There's this girl I loved, but she disappeared a long time ago. When we were children, we played in the rubble in the street, in the broken cement on broken glass, with sticks and bricks and garbage, city garbage. We made up mysteries for ourselves and enacted stories. We made great adventures in condemned houses, deserted garages, empty, scary warehouses. We broke into cars and churches. We trembled and held hands. We'd wrestle and we'd fight. We were tender and we were fierce. And then in alleys we would kiss each other 100 million times. Arthur was my lover in my heart, a city lover, near to her. It made me lonely. What wasn't rape? I disappeared from him, and grief washed over me, pulling me near to her. She died when someone did something. No one would say what, but she was wild and strong. A man did something and she took pills. A beautiful girl, all the adults said. It makes you lonely. What isn't rape? He slept, and I left, lonely twice for both. You can love somebody once, and somebody a little once. Then it ends, and you're a sad, lonely girl, though you don't think much about it much. After the light would come, slow, he'd be kissing my hands.